From WisPolitics in Madison, you're listening to Capital Chats.
Hello, everybody. This is Kate Morton with WisPolitics here with a Capital Chats podcast brought to you by Spectrum. Today I'm here with my colleague Adam Kelnhofer, and we're going to talk a little bit about a discussion he had with Representative Rob Brooks about the big Brewers deal that Republicans announced this week to keep the team in Wisconsin. So, Adam, maybe you can let us in on some of the things you talked about.
Hi, Kate. Yeah, I got to catch up with Brooks. He's a Republican from Saukville, and the big news here is this deal is designed to keep the Milwaukee Brewers in Wisconsin through 2050. So, for another 27 years here. But let's just hear it from Brooks on some of those details with this deal.
So welcome to the show, Representative Brooks.
Well, thank you for having me. Looking forward to getting the information out there.
Of course. So why don't we just touch with the top line numbers here? How much is this proposal going to cost, and how much is it going to give to the Brewers?
Well, it gives nothing to the Brewers.
Oh,
so let's start with that premise. The Brewers are our tenant. So, as a matter of fact, the Brewers are contributing $100 million to the state, into the Stadium District Board, to help facilitate the new lease agreement and the terms of this bill that we're drafting. There's an additional request of 135 to 200 million from our local partners in the city and the county, and there's some flexibility there. And then there's an additional contribution of about 400 million that will be coming from the state. And that money is strictly derived from the players' salaries and visiting team salary and player personnel related to the Brewers organization. So all of that money goes to the Stadium District Board, who is ownership with the state of Wisconsin, who owns the stadium.
Okay, so how much exactly, like overall, everything combined, how much is this going to cost?
So again, and we're not finalized these numbers. So we're estimating probably around 635 million.
Okay. And is that plan, I know the proposal is still a little bit up for negotiation, but the goal is to keep the team in Wisconsin through 2050, right?
Right, and that's not in negotiation. We've got that settled with the Brewers to keep them through 2050. So tax dollars or revenue from that, I mean, we're looking at $535 in tax revenue, and then an additional 100 from the Brewers. So it's about 535 million is what we're anticipating raising through some sort of tax, but no new taxes.
Okay, got it. And then, so how did you arrive at the current deal that we have right now? Like, who is involved and who wanted what from who?
So this started after the governor came out with his proposal, earlier this year, to try and keep the Brewers, and he obviously put that in his budget and had put in about $290 million to try and keep the Brewers. Now that $290 million equates to the $400 million that we're putting in our plan as well. It's almost an identical number, and people are like, well, how does 290 million equal 400? Well, 290 million paid up front with interest equals 400 million paid over time. So we started with the premise that the governor laid out, and then started having meetings with Senator Lemieux, Senator Fine, some of my colleagues, and Speaker Voss, and representatives from the Brewers to see where we could get to see if there was a deal to be had. And that's what's got us to where we are today.
Okay, got it. So I know you have been pretty key to this whole negotiation process. Do you know why you were picked as the leader to negotiate this deal here?
Other than I have a financial background, I'm in the real estate industry. It's what I do for a living. I was a former county board chairman for 10 years in Ozaukee County. So I was chairman of the board when we had the 5 county tax in. So I think it made a lot of sense to have somebody from one of the 5 counties spearhead this and I do negotiations for a living. So I was more than glad to step up and do that. And I think we came up with a very good bill at the end of the day.
Nice. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There are a lot of people talking about, whether this is going to be a good deal for taxpayers or not. Can you talk about kind of how much revenue this might generate for the state of Wisconsin, or for, Milwaukee, or anyone else that might benefit off of keeping the Brewers in the state?
So over the term of between now and 2050, we're estimating, and these aren't my estimates, these are very conservative estimates from the Fiscal Bureau, to say that we're going to bring in well over $600 million in income taxes from the Brewers. And that's an important thing to tie it to that. So roughly this year, that's about $13 million in today's dollars. That's going to be over $30 million towards the end, as we get closer to 2050, with the appreciation of salaries and stuff, and say we're going to use that money that would clearly be gone if the Brewers leave, and pay that in. And we're going to use about $400 million of that $600 million. So, and the other way the state benefits is, currently there's about $225 million in sales at the district on an annual basis. But just in state income taxes, if you took 5% of that, it's north of $10 million. Now, we can't say that all of that revenue would be lost if the Brewers left, but we can say easily 14% of it would be, because those are out-of-state fans that are coming here, to see the games, and they clearly wouldn't be coming here if the Brewers left. So we're talking millions and millions of dollars every year. And when we talk about the new shared revenue formula, keep in mind that out of every 5 cents the state brings in, one of those goes into the pot of money for shared revenue for every community across the state. And Milwaukee, again, has a 2% new sales tax that they will be generating on that $225 million in sales at the stadium. The county also has a new 0.4% on top of the 0.5% that they have. So Milwaukee County, City of Milwaukee clearly benefit the most from this deal. And the state benefits, and every community across the state benefits. And we're not talking about the goodwill or the philanthropic benefits that having a major league team does for a city or a community either.
All right, so that makes sense. So a lot of people have been kind of concerned about basically, I guess, this is going to cost quite a bit of money. Are there any kind of guarantees that the state won't be surprised again when the Brewers, maybe they run into financial hardship in the future? Is there any kind of guarantee that we won't be in this situation again in the next, 10, 20, or 30 years?
So, having a study done a few years ago by VSG and Icon, both the Brewers had a study done, and then the state had a study done. Both of those studies, one came in at $428 million. The other one came in, with projections over $600 million in needed repairs to get us through 2040, not 2050, but 2040. So we've got some really good estimates through 2040. We're over budgeting for that. We've been in consultation with the Brewers about what they think needs to be done on top of those studies. And we have a nice reserve built into this at the end of the day, so that when we get to 2050, there will be funds there available to either continue on with the stadium, or tear it down. But clearly, as we get close to 2050, those conversations will have to be had, because we're only budgeting enough to get us through 2050, and then have enough reserves for, tearing it down or going on for a few more years. So come 2050, we'll have these conversations again.
So when 2050 rolls around, there's no real guarantee that the Brewers team itself will be in a financial position to kind of fund themselves. They'll still need tax dollars.
If I could predict where the world's economy or any economy would be in 2050, I'm sorry, I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be sitting wherever Warren Buffett or somebody else is. So I can't predict that, but I can tell you the way baseball parks are financed, they're publicly financed currently, and I don't know that financing model is going to change between now and 2050. As an elected official, would I like to see it change? Would I like to see baseball park owners pay for their own stadiums? Sure, but that is not the financing model that's being used today in the marketplace, and hard to step up and ask one team out of an entire league to do it differently when they're already sacrificing playing in a small market, like Milwaukee, and they, could go to a much larger city, and their value of the Brewer organization would go up dramatically. So I truly applaud the Brewers for their commitment and willing to stay through 2050. And if we can get them to stay beyond that, I wouldn't be happier.
All right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So a lot of these funds are going to pay for stadium improvements and maintenance efforts. Can you talk about what kind of improvements and, maintenance efforts are we talking about here?
A couple of things, and I think it's important to talk about this because these are some of the nuances of a 30-some page bill. But we're talking air handling systems, boiler systems, the roof. We're one of the few people in the country that has, removable, or not removable, closable roof. It'd be nice if it was removable. But if you looked at some of the articles a few weeks ago, the roof was leaking, So we're talking roof maintenance, repairs, you can imagine the mechanics to keep that roof moving. It's like a small train up there on tracks, and just like you would at your house, the air handling systems, the furnaces, the boilers, the electrical, a lot of that needs to start to be upgraded after 20 some years. And I think sometimes we forget that park is 22 years old. And while it was state of the art, it's not state of the art now. I mean, we are still one of the top parks in the country, I believe. And I think we'll remain there under this maintenance program. But we also have a contractual obligation with the Brewers to keep the stadium in the top. If 75% of the ballparks have something, we need to do that as well. So it is going to be updating scoreboards and ribbon panels and some of that, because that's our contractual obligation with the Brewers. And if we don't meet that, they're going to leave. And that's something that I think hasn't been reported enough, is that currently our stadium account doesn't have enough money to fulfill our contractual obligations through 2030. So we need to do something either way.
All right. That makes perfect sense to me. That is actually all I have time for today. So I just want to say thank you for joining me on this call for the show today. Representative Brooks, it was wonderful to have you on.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, Adam. Well, thank you for sharing that interview. We'll have to stay tuned and see if there's any more changes made to this bill, considering some of the local Milwaukee community's concerns about the financial obligations for them.
That's right, Kate. And if our listeners want to read more about the deal, they can head over to our website at wispolitics.com, where they can find all the updates about the deal as this proposal progresses and possibly changes in the near future. But for now, I'm Adam Kelnhofer.
I'm Kate Morton.
Thanks for tuning in to WisPolitics Capital Chats, brought to you by Spectrum.